thing to go right now, but also then to seek your direction and your input about what comes next. And keep in mind that in February, we'll have our initial budget planning workshop for the 21-22 school year, where we'll again look at our capital plan for the next 5 and 10 years to see where we're going. And so this kind of gives you that broader background. If possible, Chairman Thacker, and certainly it's up to the will of the board, but if we could maybe jot down questions as we go and save them for like the last 15 to 20 minutes. We certainly want to give the board time to answer questions, but there is a lot of information to go through. I want to kind of give the team a chance to go through it high level and then come back, if that's okay with you.
You okay with that? Ask the question again? Satisfied for us then?
Thank you very much. Mr. Clinch?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Dr. Pace, thank you. This is the facilities program overview. So what I've attempted to do is address our projects in each of the project phases, pre-planning, planning, design, and construction, with further breakdown by funding source. So we are going to be starting with our impact fee projects, quarter pennies, half penny, miscellaneous capital projects, brief market forecast, and we'll go into our Q&A. So this is our overall program, a respectable $414 million, a good-sized program, and we continue to build this program as we respond to the community's needs. So our projects in pre-planning, we will take a deep dive on each of these projects. So this is an overview of everything that we have in pre-planning, projects in planning, and as you can see, several comprehensive renovation projects upcoming. Our projects in design, which includes 2 air handler replacement projects that you'll be seeing as part of this evening's board agenda for Horizon and Kissimmee Middle, as well as our OTEC project. Again, we'll be taking a deep dive on each of these larger projects. Projects in construction, which includes our Canoe Creek Year 2, our large project that we land this summer. And of course, we have our smaller projects as well that we'll be discussing. So we'll start with our impact fee projects. And our first project, okay, so we are going to actually go out of order a little bit.
No, go back.
I'm sorry. There you go. Okay. Well, first, Rhonda will be talking about our Transportation West project. Rhonda.
Good afternoon, everyone. A brief update on looking for a Transportation West facility. So currently, we have our primary centralized transportation that's located on Simpson Road. And then we have 2 satellite facilities. One's located east on Michigan Avenue in St. Cloud, and the other one shares a site with Horizon Middle School. So at this time, for probably 3-4 years now, that satellite facility has outgrown itself. So 41% of all the buses operating from Horizon Middle School and are coming back all the time to the Simpson Road for all their general maintenance and for daily parking. So that's how much they've overgrown that site. As a result of that, they are driving approximately 83,000 deadhead miles per year. So that's just when the driver's behind the window driving between the 2 locations, to and from. And that's costing approximately $142,500 per school year to allow for those operational expenses. We've been working diligently on the west side of the county to find a larger site to accommodate the transportation facility. The first site that we became very close to was off of Robert McLean Road. At the end of the day, the seller decided they didn't want to sell for appraised value. They wanted a higher amount than the appraised value, so we had to walk away from that site. We looked at a second site, and then the board decided that that was not the most appropriate site for a transportation depot. But we're currently looking at that same site for a future K-8. And we're currently looking at a site off of Avenue A. So it's off of Poinciana Boulevard behind the Restaurant Depot facility and just south of Poinciana High School. So we are in negotiations right now with that owner as an option for a future Transportation West to allow us to be on that side of town, to accommodate all future growth and to eliminate the operational expenses that we're currently paying out each year. You're next.
Okay, so our next project is the Canoe Creek K-8. As we indicated, we are in year 2 of construction. This is a split-funded project. The majority of the funding is impact fee for the new student stations, with the remainder quarter penny. So this is an exciting project where we will be adding new student stations, 540 new student stations, a new kitchen cafeteria, and a gymnasium, as well as all the athletic amenities. At current, the school operates as a K-6. So when we complete this project this summer, it will be a full K-8. And what we'd also like to note is this is a high performance. All our new construction going forward is high performance, like the Osceola Business Academy, Neo City Academy, etc. That will save us an estimated $125,000 a year just by that more efficient, tighter building envelope. This is the tilting that just started yesterday. So these are pretty much real-time photos, a very exciting milestone for that project as we go vertical. Our next impact fee project is the Osceola Business Academy, which was completed last summer. Again, it is also a high-performance building. Will save us an estimated $14,000 a year with that tighter building envelope and right-sized mechanical system. Other projects completed at Point Siena this summer include the new central energy plant. That is a energy plant that was a priority 1, required daily, weekly intervention to keep it running. So brand new central energy plant. We also expanded the clinic with adding the additional student stations. That was a code requirement to bring the clinic up to the current occupancy standards. Here's some photos, a montage of the Osceola Business Academy, a business entrepreneur focus. It is really exciting to see the staff using the school as it was intended. We hosted our last business advisory board meeting at this site. So our BAB board got to see the school firsthand. Now we'll move into our quarter penny. Our first project is the Sunbridge Area K-8. First, let me say that this has been a great partner to work with the Tavistock Group. We are currently zeroing in on a school mitigation agreement, which will allow us to put this project into design very shortly. But this is in the new Sunbridge area, which is adjacent to the Sunbridge, the new proposed Sunbridge Parkway, and just south of Cyril Drive. It's a net 20 acres, and it will be a full K-8. And what we're discussing with Tavistock is an environmentally themed K-8. South Point Siena Boulevard, AKA Knightsbridge. Rhonda, back to you.
Back to me. So this is a piece of property I spoke briefly about a minute ago. We originally looked at it as a transportation depot site back in 2018 and decided with all the rapid incoming residential coming into the area, that was not the best interest at the time. So we discontinued discussions. We are back now looking at the site as a future K-8. It's approximately 61 acres, 42.8 acres of uplands with 18.2 acres of wetlands. We have the option of a cash purchase or an impact fee credit purchase or a combination of both. We first came to, as I said, to the school board to talk about a transportation facility. To date, we've done due diligence, SDOC appraisals, we've done a phase 1 environmental protected species. Then in March of this year, we realized that, well, we didn't realize, we still had a need for relief for Westside K-8. So the school's built for about 1,300 students. We're currently accommodating close to 1,800 with 23 portables on site. We have experienced extreme difficulty locating property on the west side of the county. It's primarily tourist commercial. If we do find property on that side of the county, it's at a cost that the school district just cannot afford to pay, as they're not willing to sell for appraised value, and or the property is available because typically there's a large amount of wetlands on it, or there's some kind of cleanup that's required to be done that doesn't make it a feasible site. So at this point, we are in communications. We hope to be bringing this agreement to the school board on the 15th for approval. On the next page, basically you see South Point Santa Boulevard. The green is the area highlighted that we are looking at for the school site. The next slide shows you the Spine Road. So the Spine Road will come to the north of our property line. We would share the Spine Road cost with the developer who will actually build the Knightsbridge community just south of the school. And then it would be 4-lane divided, and as I said, it would be shared. So we would cover the expenses for the portion of the road along the side of our property line. And then the next slide. This shows you all of the development that's coming into the area. We have the Sunrail station just north of South OBT. Immediately north of that is Taylor Morrison. That's about 8 acres of commercial. Immediately north of that, Osceola County bought the balance of the Taylor Morrison property, and that is where they're looking to build their affordable housing community. To the north of that would be the proposed school site, and then to the west of that is Cypress Hammock, which is another residential community. And then we show you the Shingle Creek mitigation group, so there would be nothing to the east of Knightsbridge. And then on the balance of the west side of the boulevard is commercial, Frito-Lay and the United States Cold Storage Group. If you come back, where we kind of got out of sync with slide 9, the other thing that's driving a significant need for this school site is on Ham Brown Road and Pleasant Hill Road. In between the two roads, all of that is starting to be developed out through residential, so that infill is coming through. So we have Story Creek that will actually right now comes in off of Ham Brown Road and will ultimately have an exit to Pleasant Hill. We have the Bronson 120. South of that, we have Sedona. And then in the hot pink area is a project known as the Ham Brown Community Center. And that is everything pretty much south of Horizon Middle School, and then to the east side of Ham Brown Road down to the Lowe's Distribution Center. And that will be a combination of multifamily and residential with about a 20-year build-out plan. So this area, we're currently searching for enough land to build a K-8 in addition to the Knightsbridge property to accommodate the overcrowding at West Side and all the additional residential development that's coming in around the Knightsbridge. So we're showing the need not only for the Knightsbridge School, but we're also going to have another need to find a school site to take on all of this infill between Ham Brown Road and Pleasant Hill Road.
Okay, back to the east side of the county. With our transportation east.
So the, as we spoke briefly about earlier, in addition to transportation outgrowing their facility on the west side of the county, they have also outgrown their facility on the east side of the county, which is immediately south of Michigan Avenue Elementary. Currently at this time, approximately 35% of all the buses operating from Michigan Avenue Satellite, they go back to the Simpson Road complex each day for parking as well as for maintenance. They're driving an estimated 150,000 miles a year of deadhead time, which is translating into an additional $262,000 a year in operational cost. If we could relocate this facility to an area better suited to service the students on the east side of the county, the relocation would significantly reduce the traffic congestion on Michigan Avenue. As you know, all three of the schools come together there. St. Cloud High School, St. Cloud Middle, and Michigan Avenue, with 1 hour staggering starting and ending school times. It would also allow for ample growth of the transportation facility for additional buses, parking, and garage space for the future. It will continue to serve all the students on the eastern side of Osceola County, increase operational efficiency, and meet the future demand of the housing growth we're experiencing. The other thing that this would allow us to do to relocate is our maintenance facility is currently located on 10th and Virginia, and it would allow us to relocate them to the Michigan Avenue Transportation Facility, and it would allow us to finally relinquish and put up for sale the 10th and Virginia property to allow the property to better fit within the City of St. Cloud's Business Development Zone, which is something we've been working with for about 3 to 5 years now to accommodate that request.
Good. And on to Kindred K8.
So Kindred K8. So Kindred is located off of Neptune Road. This site was mitigated about 8 to 10 years ago. It is a 20-acre net usable. It was mitigated as part of their total build-out plan, which is 2,976 single-family homes with 693 multifamily homes. We originally was going to accept conveyance of this site on December 19th. The property was not accessible at that time, so we agreed to push out the conveyance to January 2021. Due to some South Florida water management permit issues and a delay of the internal road network, we are now bringing to you on December 15th a third amendment to extend the conveyance of the school site to August 2021, which will allow us to do a tentative new opening date of 2024-2025, pending our current annual update of the tract development of all of the residential development going on in Osceola County.
Very good. And back to the west side of the county, Celebration Island Village School, Elementary School, is a project that we initially anticipated to get into construction about a year ago, but because of developer issues, we had to defer that project. That project is now moving forward again. We do have an approved revised agreement with Mattamy and the Celebration Company. The project will soon go into design. We have recently negotiated a design fee, and we'll be bringing that to the board on December 15th. It's just short of 90,000 square feet. It will follow, as the other new construction, a high-performance building criteria for an ultra-low energy usage, 10-acre net, 948 student stations, which is our approved prototype elementary school size. Now into our half-penny sales tax projects. Thanks to the voters of Osceola County. This great initiative was approved in November of 2016. And since then, our school district has been very busy with addressing needs at our various schools and facilities. We have touched all campuses in some form or fashion with this funding. And we've done that with the help of maintenance, security, and technology, IT. So they have been completing projects as well. What we're going to be talking about for the most part are the major reconstruction, what we call comprehensive renovation projects. And as you can see, those listed 1 through 6, we're following the order that was approved by the voters back in November of 2016. We're following that order very closely. We're going to take a deep dive on each of these 6 projects as we move forward. But further, with the help of other departments within the school district, this is a breakdown of what has been spent to date and completed to date on the half-penny. So you can see the comprehensive renovations are to the top. Those are the major projects, followed by the maintenance and renovation projects, anything from chiller replacements to building envelope, fire alarms, etc. Then our safety and security projects, and finally our technology upgrade projects. So the first project is the Michigan Avenue Elementary School. This project is completed. We had a successful project. It was a multi-phased, working around the ongoing school operations, where we were able to achieve 946 student stations on a 21-acre site. And those are the reconciled cost. This project is now in closeout. Next project. Oh, let me talk about our shared facilities, excuse me. So to the bottom of the screen is Michigan Avenue Elementary School. Those are the two buildings, the new main building to the bottom left and the existing building 3 to the bottom right that we were required to retain and renovate. To the top of the screen is St. Cloud Middle School. We'll talk about that a little bit further in just a bit. But that building in the middle is the shared kitchen cafeteria. And DOE just loved this concept where we were not only able to save in first costs, but in overall operational cost. So our first cost savings was a little over $2 million. And with the operational savings, that's about $250,000 a year. And this is just for the shared kitchen cafeteria. We also have the shared parent and bus loops, a shared central energy plant, and a shared lift station as well. So lots of opportunities on this project. The next is Denjon Middle School. This was priority 2. This project is completed. It was completed last summer. It was a multi-phase project. We achieved 1,408 student stations, which again is the middle school approved prototype size. Those are the final reconciled cost for that project. So in this project, we were able to build a new multi-purpose building, classrooms, new kitchen cafeteria, admin, and some other dean offices and such, and a new media center. We renovated 2 of the classroom buildings, one for the new admin and the other for the new ESE. And those buildings were located at the front of the campus, right where we wanted those functions to exist. We also renovated the gymnasium and the music building. This is St. Cloud Middle School, and that's the project that was to the top of the previous Michigan Avenue screen. This project is also completed. So that gets us priorities 1, 2, and 3 under our belts. Again, this project was built to prototype size, 1408, and we are now working through a final portion on this site, which is the old St. Cloud Middle School band building. It will become the new Osceola Virtual School. We'll talk about that further in a future slide. This is Gateway High School. It is our next comprehensive renovation. This project just went into design. It was a bit of a challenge to work through the Department of Education to get what's called the Castaldi approval. And that's the permission from the DOE to demolish educational facilities. We requested 10.5 buildings. What we achieved was 8.5 buildings. And given the age of those buildings, an average of 34 years, whereas the rule of thumb for approval is 50 years, we believe that we did very well with our dealings with the Department of Education. What we did not get are these 2 buildings. This is the art and music. So I'll go to the next slide and show you how what our plan is moving forward. So the yellow represents the new construction, and as you can see, the 2 red buildings to the right are those buildings that we did not receive approval for. However, in our design, we have provisions for our designer to seek the Castaldi approval. At the time, those 2 buildings were right on the bubble between renovation and replacement. So as we get more age on those buildings, and provided that we don't put an investment in those buildings, we believe that we will be successful in getting approval to demolish those 2 buildings as well. And what that will do for us is with the buildings in blue that will be demolished and those 2 buildings in red, it will create an open courtyard area so that we can have clear line of sight, which was a main driver for this project. The other driver for this project was the sprawl of the campus. Because the campus is so spread out, the school actually has to allow additional time, 1 minute, between classes for students to transfer from one end of the campus to the other. So in our future construction, it will be more efficient, and it will also be high performance construction as well, which will save us on our energy cost. Our next project is the Osceola County School of the Arts, known as OCSA. So we are currently negotiating a tri-party agreement with Tupperware, Osceola County, and the school district, and I'll speak about that a little bit further in the next slide. So this campus has two main buildings. The main building that houses admin, media, and most of the classrooms, and then building 2, which is the Performing Arts Center with some additional performing arts labs. The majority of the classrooms occur in 28 modulars, and that's what's down on the bottom of the screen. So our plan moving forward is to replace those 28 modulars with real brick and mortar classroom construction. Now, provided that we move these modulars to other campuses, we are not required to follow the strict custody process. However, if we were to demolish or sell these modulars that we own, then we would have to go through the custody process. So we do have need across our district. Our plan is to move those modulars strategically where we currently lease portables. Again, we own those portables, so that will get us out of those additional lease costs. And we're making lots of great headway in reducing our number of portables. So this is the tri-party agreement to build roads to the rear of the campus. We would have an exclusive bus route which would come off of the new Healthy Way, which connects to an existing spur of Healthy Way where the new hospital is located off of the Osceola Parkway. And to the south is Mary Lewis Lane, which connects to OBT and Orange Avenue. So what this would do for us is provide an exclusive bus access. Today, there's only one curb cut at that school, and it's at a light right off of OBT. So what's happening is our cars and bus traffic is mixing, which technically is in violation of SREF. So this is an opportunity to clean up that issue. So we would, as part of the tri-party agreement, would design and construct the roadway, and we would get up to 50% reimbursement as development comes along at Healthy Way. This is an agreement that you will be seeing soon, I believe December 15th. We're very close to finalizing this agreement. It's been a long road, no pun intended. Okay, our next project is Reedy Creek Elementary School, so lots of opportunities on this project. There's essentially two buildings. One of those is a covered PE, but there's a building 1 and a 2-story classroom building. So building 1 houses most of the school's functions, the media center, kitchen, cafeteria, classroom, administrative. And then there's a 2-story building that joins to it. So the trick is with building 1, it was built in 2 different time periods. The first was built in '81, and it was the old bomb bunker school. It was an earthened school. Since then, the earth has been removed from the roof. There were some challenges with that, obviously. It turned out not to be such a good idea. And then there's a newer 2-story portion of that building that was built in '98. So we are currently, we just recently started the custody process where we will seek approval to demolish building 1 in its entirety. The portion that was built in '81 and the newer portion built in '98, which is problematic from a system standpoint, lots of HVAC and envelope issues. Other opportunities, all of the traffic is fed off of Point Siena Boulevard at this time. So what we're proposing to do in the comprehensive renovation is to split the traffic patterns, where the buses and staff parking would come in off of the existing traffic signal off of Point Siena Boulevard, and we would move the car loop off of Crescent Lakes Boulevard, which is a lower volume roadway, helps to make the school more connected to the community and provides a safer situation. And if you've ever been at Reedy Creek for dismissal, it will also help to make that campus much more efficient. Now to our capital projects. So these are some of the projects that we recently completed this last summer at Liberty High School, a telecommunications tower and a space reconfiguration. So the telecommunication towers are not new to us. We've completed several of those in our recent history, and we have our next one teed up at Kissimmee Middle School. So this falls in line with strategy 3C under fiscal responsibility, where we're able to achieve alternative revenue funding. These cell towers net us about $2 million a year. So that's a good thing for the school district. And then we have our space reconfiguration projects, which actually help to get us out of the portable business. So what we do is we go into an existing school and we repurpose the square footage in a more efficient way. So that square footage that may not be utilized to its full extent or can be used more efficiently is being broken down into classrooms that achieve FTE funding. So it helps from a funding standpoint as well, in addition to keeping us out of the portable business. So we were able to create 6 new classrooms at Liberty High School. And we have several of these types of projects under our belts, as you can see. All said, we have created 48 additional classrooms in the last 4 years. So rough number is about 1,000 for a lease portable. And actually that's low. Lease portables are now running 12 to 1,400. But conservatively, 1,000 a month, 12,000 a year, that's saving us nearly 600,000. So a good thing for our school district. And as I mentioned, this helps to further reduce our portables across the district. At current, we're down to 131 portables. The school district I'm coming from had over 2,000, and that number continued to increase. So we're doing good things. We're being fiscally responsible and trying to curve those operational costs. We have another space reconfiguration coming up in '22 at Harmony High School. These are our school nutrition projects, and specifically our serving line and kitchen renovation projects. We completed 2 of those this last summer, and there they are, Celebration High School and Chestnut Elementary School. We also completed 7 cafeteria refresh projects last summer. So as you can see, we have several successful S&S projects under our belt, which also includes some generator projects, and these are at locations that are used for fallout shelters in times of hurricane and evacuation. So now we're going to have backup power at those locations for our freezer coolers. And in past, at the locations where we've installed these generators, they actually had large amounts of food spoilage where they had to discard all their food. When it goes down below a certain temperature, FDA requires that all that food be discarded. So that will help to avoid that. As well as 27 electric gate projects, which also speaks to the safety security, so that not just anybody can drive behind the school delivery area. And we have more of those projects, less projects coming up. Most of these projects were funded via grant, and that grant money now is starting to dry up. So we're shifting our focus from these types of projects two other projects that we'll talk about in our next slide, which is our safety and security projects, which we have been doing ongoing. You're all familiar with the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act, which mandates certain security provisions. We have been doing those security projects even before that terrible incident down south. So we've been doing a lot of secure lobby projects. We have several of those coming up and many more, which are partially funded by a grant. We completed a project at Westside K8 this last summer. And we're also getting ready to move forward with several DAS radio projects. And Mr. Lockhart is going to share some great news about those DAS projects.
We've known for some time that we've had some discrepancies at several of our campuses where our emergency responders, whether they be fire, police, medical, have had difficulty with communicating on our campuses. It obviously is a major issue. Since this problem doesn't just exist with us, it's a universal problem. The codes have addressed this issue, and now they're mandated through NFPA that this situation be resolved. So we've teamed up with our SSEM counterparts, and we went out for a evaluation of all of our campuses, which we completed in 2018. We found all the deficiencies. The campuses that were all okay are fine for now. We may have to continue to check them in the future. The ones that are identified as a problem, which are 22 of our campuses, we've prioritized, and we are now going after a solution for those projects. We used that study as the first step of a design build process where you get the design criteria and you use that design criteria then to do a design build with a turnkey vendor. We just had that CCNA selection, and we've selected Radio One as that vendor that's going to go through and accomplish all of these corrections at these 22 facilities. And basically, it depends on the number of buildings that you have and the number of stories that you have, how you tackle the problem. So it has to be separately engineered. So they do the engineering themselves as a turnkey design build. They find out exactly what they have to do to correct the deficiencies that we've already identified. So they're not making the stuff up. We already know exactly where our problems are. Then we cost out the correction, and they will attack those problems in a priority order. So we're going to use our cyclical capital funds to get started with. In the meantime, SSEM has gone after a grant to cover the remainder. So again, we're working seamlessly with them and our code officials as well, because they also see this as a high priority. For example, when we just recently completed the Point Siena Business Academy, that school had some serious deficiencies. So we actually corrected those deficiencies in that project. Even though our building that we added was fine, the rest of the campus had issues, and whenever you build something, you can negatively affect the reception of these 800 megahertz radio systems at the existing campus. And that's exactly what happened in this case. It got worse when we built the new building. So we went and fixed that problem as part of our project. And it just so happens that we use Radio One to accomplish that feat there.
So we now have a turnkey solution where we can get a lot of these types of projects completed. It's a huge win for
And we're
our
using the
district.
same kind of solution for our coordination with SSEM on our hardened lobby, secure lobby projects, where we've gotten together and we've developed design guidelines that are above and beyond code. It tells you how you're going to achieve the code requirements for our particular district. Now that we have that set of design guidelines, we're going out to our more vulnerable, you could say, campuses, and in a prioritized order, We've got the first 4 of them already laid out. We just did walkthroughs with different designers, and we'll come up with solutions to correct those issues and
Thank you.
make our campuses safer.
Thank you. So as you can see, some other safety security projects that we completed. And, we look forward to our continued coordination with safety security to complete such projects. They're important. Back to Poinciana High School. This is our campus-wide lighting and football field project. So the lighting project was originally anticipated to go till spring break-ish, and we're hoping to complete that project by late January. So we are ahead of schedule. And the lion's share, the harder parts of that project are completed, which is the classrooms, which had to be completed during off hours in the evening. And then our football field project, which was really a drainage project. There were some significant drainage issues that we were able to correct, and we now have a football field that is much more usable. Also at Poinciana High School, I alluded to the chiller project that we completed last summer. It's a full new central energy plant with all new chilled water piping. And what's really neat about this project is, as opposed to the conventional black iron pipe that has to be welded by a certified welder, et cetera, very difficult, and has to be done in an open cut situation, we're able to use a product called Aquatherm, where we're able to directional bore the new lines in at most of the locations, which avoided a lot of open cut, which was very helpful in working around the ongoing school operations. And it was actually a savings to the project, a product that has been proven. So very excited about that project. We've also completed several HVAC chiller projects, assisting maintenance. When the sales tax was first approved, that summer we went out with 6 chiller replacement projects. Maintenance does those projects for the most part, but we have assisted with some of those projects. And as I mentioned earlier, we have the 2 air handler unit projects coming up at Horizon and Kissimmee. So both those projects started with maintenance. They asked for our assistance. We attempted to go out last summer, but because of the current market conditions and the market saturation, both those projects came in above budget. They were each over $3.4 million. We recently took those projects back out to bid. Both of them came in at below $2.8 million. So combined, that's going to save the school district over $1.2 million. And those are both on this evening's board agenda. We're ready and excited to move forward with both those projects this summer. In fact, our CM is in the room, Core Construction, Mr. David Lewis. Thank you, David. All right, and our Osceola Virtual School, this is the old St. Cloud Middle School band building. We looked at what was the best fit, and we found where we had need to expand our virtual school. So we took the old band building, and what we've done is created testing spaces, tutoring spaces. We created offices, a staff restroom, have completely renovated that building. And that building will be open for operation in January. Some help from our operations group with finding FF&E to locate in that building so that we could avoid a lot of those costs with the FF&E purchase. So constantly looking at how we can be fiscally responsible on such projects. It is a project that, in addition to what Rhonda spoke about with St. Cloud High School, St. Cloud Middle School, Michigan Avenue, there's a lot going on in that area. However, in our new St. Cloud Middle School project, we have a new traffic signal, some decel lanes, and we have accommodated for the traffic patterns for the Osceola Virtual School as well. We have wayfinding and that type of thing. Okay, and this is our OTEC CNC welding. This started as a request from CTE to site a new welding program at OTEC St. Cloud. However, the city currently leases those spaces to us, and the space that was intended is still being utilized by OUC. and will be for another 3 years. So we found this opportunity to locate this program at the OTEC main campus off of Simpson Road. And it's a pre-engineered building. It was very economical to purchase this building as compared to the space that we would have gotten in St. Cloud. It's a much more efficient layout. There was a portion of that existing building that had a loading dock where we essentially lost all that space. So we will be able to, 100% utilize every square inch of this building. And so this is where the welding program will be sited, along with the classroom space. We also had room to put in a CNC program. The current CNC program is operating adjacent to the HVAC program in a small 1,500 square foot space. The space is not adequate for this type of program. So this will allow the CNC program to spread its wings a little bit and operate more efficiently. And also keep in mind that CNC and welding are very related. So in fact, the CTE department intends on offering a program that provides both industry skill sets, and this is a very sought after skill set in our market. And then there's a shared admin space. In addition to this project, we completed an OTEC parking lot project last summer and previously completed the diesel mechanic and construction program at OTEC St. Cloud and the cosmetology program at OTEC West, which is in Point Siena. So we really enjoy working with CTE on these projects. And I'm going to conclude with a brief market forecast. I'm not a market forecaster, but I do like to watch the market and see what's going on. It gives us a good indication on where we're headed and what we can expect for resources as we move forward with our very aggressive $414 million program. So first thing that I like to look at is the AIA Architectural Billing Index. And as you can see, from the graph here, this is what the index has been doing over the last 5 years. And you can see the dip in 2020. That was at the most severe point of COVID, late March into early April. And that dipped just below 30. Good news is that has rebounded quite well. As of August, we're sitting at 47.1. And historically, or at least the last year, you can see the 2018 mark where we have been above 50. And that indicates a very healthy and active Central Florida construction market. And again, we're currently getting back up into 47. At current though, however, we're in looking at the current construction, we have to look at the non-residential construction index. And as of the last quarter, we were at 36.9. So I'm pleased to see the AIA index headed in the direction it is. What that means at 47.1 is that's work that's coming at us. So today we're at the mid 30s, but we're headed back up into those 50s based on the architectural work, the design work that's currently in process. That design work will ultimately go into construction. As far as commodities, various things going up and down. And I think what's really no surprise is the concrete going up by 10%. Most of our cement in the United States is sourced by China. However, rebar and steel is down, which are also products which are, for the most part, sourced by China, though we are expanding our production here in the United States. So that's a good thing to see. Ultimately, our escalation is down from 5% down to 4.4%. So what we're seeing in the market is a little bit better pricing, but more availability of resources. And the projects, the air handler unit projects that Core Construction recently took out to bid, they had very good bid coverage. I believe there were 7 mechanical contractors that bid that work, so that's phenomenal for that type of project. So it's looking good. We're optimistic, provided that there isn't some unexpected 9/11 or, God forbid, another pandemic. Things are looking good. It looks like it's coming back. It's good to see who you're competing against. Excuse me. So the top photo, Brightview Express, that's the rail from South Florida. And that's where most of our cranes are being tied up right now. For the longest time, it was the I-4 Ultimate, but now our cranes are being tied up on this project. So anytime that we have to tilt panels or erect steel, we're having to stand in line for this project. Lots of activity. Tied in with OIA South Terminal. The South Terminal continues. It's scheduled to be completed in the next couple of years, the first phase anyway. Of course, Orlando Downtown continues. It's slowed down just a bit. Lake Nona continues to move forward with their aggressive expansion plans. As far as healthcare, hospitals and standalone emergency clinics, I think you've seen those spring up in many locations, so that's a very busy market. The top is an OCPS project. This is their next high school on the southwest end of the county. So OCPS continues with their very aggressive school expansion program. And then housing, whether it be residential apartments or housing. I think Board Member Bass will attest, there just isn't enough inventory out there. So those types of projects continue with no end in sight. That concludes my presentation. I'll open it up for questions and answers.
Just a couple of quick clarifications. Board member, I apologize, but in today's case of making sure that we were ready for the workshop after the holiday, the last and greatest PowerPoint, I think, was not quite uploaded to the system. So just for the public's clarity and your clarity, I want to make sure everybody's aware. Our transportation west and east projects would be paid for out of the quarter penny. That slides 10 and 11 reference impact fees, but those are not new student station projects. So they would be paid for out of a sales tax project. Canoe Creek K-8, as Mr. Clinch mentioned, but I want to make sure it's clear in this slide, 12 and 13, is part of the half penny and partially funded through impact fees, because we are renovating existing student stations as well as adding new student stations. And then the new student stations that we're planning for at both Sunbridge K-8, Kindred K-8, Celebration Isle, as well as what we would potentially do, with board's further discussion at Knightsbridge, would all be impact fee projects. So just for clarity, sales tax, comprehensive renovations, chiller replacement, safety and security technology, impact fees, new student stations. And I apologize for that error and mistake.
With that, we'll go to our discussion. Comments or questions? Mr. Melendez, go first.
I'm just gonna kind of put them in order for the page. Not so much the priority of the question, just keeping it simple and chronological. On page 5, the total budgets, are those, because I understand there's like total project budget versus, and then does that include like FF&E, the equipment, the land purchase? Is that like total construction, or is that just construction?
This is total project budget, but it does not include the land. The land is funded from another funding source, but this does include everything in the project, which is the design, the construction, the FF&E, material testing, etc.
Everything except for the land. Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you. And then the other thing we had mentioned before, because I had met with them prior, I think on the Friday before Thanksgiving holiday, so I appreciate you helping me out on that. From what I understand, and this is kind of for the board's review as well, because I was trying to get everything straightened, because I know, Mr. Bass, you go to the Business Advisory Board meeting, that there's certain restrictions on what you can use for the impact fee collections, and even in the sales tax, there's there's different sales tax. There's one that sunsets in 2025
Right.
versus the one that's longer in 2016. So basically, we're kind of hamstrung on the different pots of money. So what I wanted to ask, that I asked before, was can we get like a beginning and ending fund balance for each category? Because we're limited in how we spend that category. So I see how much we're spending, but we have a little bit left over, and then I followed up with Sarah Graver, and staff has been phenomenal asking the questions, by the way. When do we bond versus not bond? Because I just wanted to make sure, just for transparency purposes, that the sales tax component that's sunshining or sunsetting in 5 years, that we're not bonding that part because that money may not be there. I mean, even though I may support it, that's a whole different ball of wax. That we're bonding only the long-term portions that we can then pay that back.
I can tell you, we are only bonding the long-term portion.
Yeah.
Very recently, we did one, I love bank loan, I think 3 years ago, another loan. And then, we're not bonding money beyond our election.
And then part of our budget workshop in February will be a comprehensive overview of the capital budget. And certainly we can answer any questions the board has ahead of time, but for clarity, this was about scope of work, but absolutely we have to pay
And I can wait to
attention
that then too.
just
I
like
just
you and I
wanted,
discussed, so
because we can see the ending fund balances. It doesn't have to be now. If it's then, that's okay. Just so we can see the.
certainly we can provide it at any time.
Thank you. Let me see here. I think the next one was page 9 on the Stone Bridge. No, Stony Creek, I'm sorry. I'm getting,
They all sound.
these things are so small too. I'm like, I'm getting old, man. I'm like, I gotta get a magnifying glass. From what I understand was the Bronson 120, that they were talking about dedicating the space for the school there, the school site there. And from what I understand, Lennar was working with the school district to get that worked out. But when I spoke with Rhonda, she was saying, you know, because Story Creek to the north and the Bronson property is really the same owner. It's gonna be, or it's gonna be two separate developers?
They're two separate developers,
Okay,
yes, sir.
two separate developers. But then from a logistics standpoint, it makes more sense to put the school site on the north end, not the south end. So now I'm confused now. I thought they were the same developer, and they're not the same developer. I know they're two different land sellers, but I thought the buyer was the same buyer. So,
Unless that's changed, Story Creek is a Lennar community, and Bronson 120 is Elevations. So unless that has changed, say in the last 30, 45 days, that is two different owners, two different developers.
so if they're two different developers, are they able to work together then? So like if we prefer the school site to be on Story Creek, will the impact fee transfer to the new person? I mean, because now you're talking two different people with control of the land.
So what staff would like to do is continue to work for the Bronson 120 Elementary School site. And then we would like to obtain enough land from Story Creek to abut the elementary site that would allow us to do a K-8. So it does take a little bit of negotiation and speaking to the Lennar community, but that would be the goal. So that's why we would want to flip the school site from the bottom of the 120 to the northern, so that we could maybe work with Lennar to obtain enough land to create a K-8 environment.
Right, and I'm okay with what staff recommends. I just don't want to pay a premium for the flip. You know what I mean? I don't want them to say, okay, well, this, you know, you made a deal originally with Elevation, not with them. Oh, we know there's a school there, because everyone knows that there's a school, man, they jack up the price on us. So I don't want that to happen here. I want them to be like, hey, the agreement that we had with Elevation, if that site isn't proper, that, you know, I can understand there might be a little bit of a price differential because it's a different owner, or who knows, maybe Elevation may be an intermediary that eventually ends up in Lennar's hands anyway, because I see, you know, I've been around a few days and I've seen that happen. So they're kind of hiding themselves to whatever. So that was my point, I wanted to make that clear, that I'm okay with that site being there because of development. I just want to make sure that, you know, that we're being mitigated properly and that we're getting
And
the best deal.
And we do work from appraised value.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I don't wanna
No, absolutely, if we're going over here.
repeat myself. On that particular parcel, if I read it correctly, there's there's one part of the contract that says that they were going to donate the site for school site. But that particular agreement was back when we had concurrency.
Right.
So when you had concurrency, they were pretty much handcuffed to the point they had to have a school site in order to develop. Well, we don't have concurrency anymore. So are they still willing to move forward with donating the land, or are we gonna have to purchase it?
Rhonda, could I address that?
Great question.
Yeah, it's clarification.
The agreement originally from the property owner was to donate the property upon the rezoning taking place. The rezoning took place, but then the economic collapse took place, so no development went forward. In comes a new developer who wants to acquire one portion of the property and says, we want to go forward. And the county, and we have it in writing, so they apparently may have been speaking out of both sides of the mouth, said, no, it's vested, it's still in place, and you have to produce the school site. The developers, as well as the seller family, both believe that has expired and is not in place. It was done when there was concurrency, and having dealt with that for years and had to write the whole Orange County thing on how to help development go forward when everything shut down, donated that. What we typically do now is if we can reach an agreement for the sale of the property, is we give them, if all goes well, impact fee credits. This issue is on the table right now, and what I have advised is that I do not think we can do anything without the board knowing. I think as it relates to the developer who wants to develop the, what's the name of it?
Bronson 120.
Bronson 120, we should allow them to go forward, because if I'm correct, Rhonda, the 15-acre site is on the other, it's a part of the 120, and they don't want to dedicate it. This is a very, I could argue both ways on this issue, but it was done when concurrency took place and you literally had no option to go forward. County apparently has verbally said that it's us holding up the development. What I've opined is that the board needs to make this decision. I don't believe staff has the authority to say, we're not gonna stand by this condition now. Whether or not we prevail if we got in a fight, I can't tell you, other than the way it was donated is not the way we do it today. So Rhonda, I'd ask you to add anything you think regarding the sites.
Yeah, just that, you know, the Planning Service Department sees every application, commercial and residential, for both entities in Osceola County. So what occurred when this project came through, we noted the donated school site. So we basically approved it pending the donation to the school district. So then, as Frank has said, as more people become involved and the difference of opinions have come up, the applicant's ready to go before the Board of County Commissioners, but we placed a hold on it, as in staff made a recommendation to hold until all the legal teams could get together and make a decision. So we're just kind of, like Frank says, staff cannot
Right, and I learned
stop development.
family law firm is, which is not the developer. I have not been able to confirm with that firm yet. And I before we go any further, I'd like to confirm, but I can tell you, I'm uneasy with this without hearing the family's position, because I don't know what the family's position is. We have other property, et cetera, and there are conditions in the deal that I want to get the family's view. Are were those conditions performed? It's best that we're well informed for the board, so at the next board meeting, I'll give you the final guidance on it, but we're right in the middle of the issue now. And you raise a very good question, sir.
But to Mr. Bass's point, I think it's very on point because it's not just concurrency for new development, but it's the conversion. What was it before? Was it agricultural? And is it getting zoned for schools because we want it to be a school? So that, to me, I think we have more leverage when it's a conversion. I don't have the property history on it. But if it was zoned agricultural and it needs to switch, it almost needed the school district's blessing in order to do it. So that's a whole different ball of wax. So if they're gonna switch and the county's gonna allow the switch, that's what I think it's in the ball of the school board to say, hey, the only reason why the land use is changing is because we wanna build a school on it. That's the only reason why the county would approve of it in the first place. You know, the county probably wouldn't allow the loans, the land use to change if the district wasn't interested in purchasing the property.
Well, what we do is we look at the application, we determine the number of units. Typically, if it's 749 units or less, historically, we can absorb that through the surrounding schools. 750 residential units or more has been the district's point of where we start asking for developers to dedicate. So based on the number of units that both sections of this development will create, that's how the recommendation for the school site came into play, because it was determined that the impact
But
of
my
one-
concern though is the conversion, because the county has a comprehensive plan for how many developments. If it's agricultural, that wasn't part of the plan for those student stations. So if they're converting it, they're putting the extra burden on us.
Right.
That's what happens with Knightsbridge. You know, the county develops Sunrail, they develop all this workforce housing, and all of a sudden, oh, wait, my first board meeting, I get sworn in, I'm getting punched to hurry up and vote on something, which I'm not saying is the district, but I'm like, man, that's where the county,
Right.
and that's what the purpose of concurrency
And
is, for the school district and the county to talk to each other.
And the
Right.
board is going, this board's going to have to make a policy decision on, for lack of a better word, what is our stand regarding, basically, a developer will say, if you were to condemn it, it's under the law, would be its best and highest use valued at. We try and argue, we'll pay you what you paid for the property, developer. You know, if you got it for 50,000 an acre, we'll reimburse you. And if you had it for like 5 years, we'll give you some interest in that to cover you. Sometimes they work with us, sometimes they go, no, I want what I could sell it for now to develop it. You have different leverage points. You have the point to say, we don't have school capacity in that area, so we don't support the development. Now, that's gonna dump it right in the county's lap, but there's also a backload onto the board about, you know, you're stopping growth, you're stopping development, you're costing money, et cetera. These are issues that we kind of face every day, and that's why you'll hear us coming to you a lot. And the Dr. Pace will be talking to you a lot, because sometimes it's very clear, sometimes it isn't. I can tell you, as this county develops, it ultimately will be a day where you don't have the ability to handle it. I've seen it in other parts of the state, okay? It just happens. So far, our administration and board have been really good about being able to deal with it, and the impact fees we raise are calculated to build the stations we need. So that's why we have never said, oh, you also gotta give us property. And this, because, wait a second, that all goes into the impact fee formula, which we'll be doing an updated one come the new year. So there's all sorts of policy implications on these issues.
And I was gonna make a comment at the end, but since we're on this subject, it's related to this, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about it. That is our impact fees. It's easy to sit here and get, really mad at developers, and really talk about how they take advantage of us, and I would admit sometimes I do wanna point out, since in the last 8 years, I think we've done 2 impact fee studies. We have worked with developers doing those studies. We have the highest impact fees in the state of Florida. And the night we voted on them, we might have had a couple developers sitting in the room, but they were not in here all screaming that we were the worst people in the world. Because they were a part of that process, they understood it. In those development fees, having the highest in the state means we can buy land. It is based on that. So we are, to me, it's, you can't say, oh, well, please help us because we gotta have these fees to buy the land, to build a building, to put a road in, to put a stop, whatever the thing happens to be that we need to do. It's all in that formula. So to get them to help us support that, to understand it, to move forward, and I can tell you, half of this packet is based on those numbers, based on things that the development has paid for. So if we want the development to pay for itself, we gotta realize it's gonna pay, there's a cost to that. It is paid for. So if we want everybody to donate land and everything else, we need to put that into our formula and back off on our impact fees, because the impact fees have to be based on fact on what it cost us to build. So, I can say, well, it's easy, and I do it too, it's easy to bash these people and talk about they're just taking advantage of us and everything else. We gotta get to the right place, but it's not all about them. And where I was kind of started with this is there was a comment in the presentation on Celebration Isle that was delayed due to issues with the developer. It was issues with the developer, but it was issues with us too.
Yes, it was.
And when we make those comments, it doesn't bode well for the community, with the people we're trying to work with and deal with. So it's kind of like you can't have your cake and eat it too. So we just gotta watch as we do this. It's a little more complicated than just moving some of the pieces around. And some of these things that happened 15 years ago, the development orders and stuff can be put aside.
Chairman, could I add one thing? Is that the issues we had on Celebration, just for the record, predated this administration, this board.
Yeah.
We were cleaning up stuff in that one. But Mr. Thacker's, we've had one fight that's gone to court with one developer, right? So far, staff's been able to work where we're getting what we need and everything's working. Julius, you raise a very good point about, and we fight that argument and we'll keep updating you as we move down the road. But just like we're dealing on this one property now, the county says, no, it's all one and this is our position. And then we get calls from the developer, that's, the county says it's all you guys. So I actually asked Ron to get it in writing from the county if we're gonna take it, and the county gave it to them. Now, I gotta unfold it all and figure out but
I don't know
what we do and how we deal with it.
Well, my only concern was, you know, the two words donation versus purchase. Because when you have 4 developments, they're all gonna benefit from that school site. I'm thinking of that particular landowner that was forced to donate under concurrency. All of these other developments are gonna take advantage of that. I mean, do we purchase it? I mean, I would think that we would, in today's
I
world, we would
think we
purchase
would-
rather than.
I think that's
we
the
look-
argument.
I think we looked the right thing, given this mess that I looked at preliminary. I think we looked to negotiate a purchase. And if we can't purchase it, I'll be talking to you about condemnation, but the reality is, asking somebody to forfeit 15 acres and then saying, and everybody's gotta pay this impact fee is, I'm more aligned with the argument of what's fair and reasonable given what you bought it for. What's value as opposed to, but the days of being able to do both, I think if we take that hard position, so you know, we'll end up in court with a challenge to the impact fee, saying, wait a second, this isn't reasonable, boom, boom. And so.
Or easily win the battle and lose that war.
So we'll come back to you with that issue, and you guys will be the ultimate policy decision maker on it. But we don't have all the answers to give.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, there's a couple of things that are at odds here. One of them is that the public itself feels that we in terms of governments and entities, government, municipalities, that we're playing fast and loose with impact fees. And that some pay, some don't. Nobody really understands the procedures and the processes and the fees that are paid, whether everyone has an equitable payment process and so on. So it may be good for us to work with the county to demonstrate the need so that, because really the pressure on us would come from the community to say, you need to stop building, first of all, right? That's the expectation that the public is saying. I hear it every day, and I've been elected for about 10 minutes. So stop building, look at, you talk about Sienna, and there's, my questions are all about like, I know already the question I'm gonna receive, but is everybody paying the appropriate impact fees? Who gets impact fee credits? What are the processes like? And then, if they have, then we should explain what the process is for buying or for the land being donated in the cases where it has been in the past. So that it's just a matter of transparency. In the end, at 30,000 feet, the developer knows that they need a school. The people know that they need a school. We know that we need to put up a school. And so as long as everyone understands the processes and the equitable process and the transparency, the equitable process, I think that they'll understand. I think that just like the community at large, we're not expecting anything for free, and they're not expecting to be fleeced by, the government and pay twice. So
Let me make a suggestion, because I think that's a good question, but it might be worthwhile in the next couple meetings to have a workshop before that for about 30 minutes.
Yes.
To go through at a very high level how the impact fees work, because there is not flexibility. Everybody pays the exact same thing for what it is. All the credit is, the impact fee credit, is they will go out and take a portion of money and spend it.
Build a road.
Build the road, maybe donate the land. They give you $1 million worth of land, they get a credit of $1 million. So the first $1 million they collect, they keep, but they gave you they've spent the money on you yet. So nobody, I want to be very clear, for similar, for whatever the categories are they pay, everybody pays the same thing, because you cannot, as a board, I know on some other boards I've been on, boards do not have flexibility on impact fees to waive or change,
much less us.
much less us.
The only way you wouldn't pay is if you were a senior, and
Yes.
we have it in documents that's locked in.
Statute and
Right, and we
In our
monitor
plan.
that. In fact, I've just done a letter to one saying, it started with, the kids couldn't go back home because they weren't in from vacation, because no international flights. So so we work this all the time, monitoring we can tell where kids come from, or any coming out of this neighborhood. And are they an exempt neighborhood, meaning they can't be kids coming out? And then they have 30 days to cure. If they don't cure, they owe all the impact fees. So it's a cat and mouse game sometimes.
we'll get that on the schedule when we go. Because it's gonna be a base information everybody's gotta have as we go into this new impact fee study. And it is designed to be a very scientific approach and study. And the impact fees by statute cannot be more than the cost of the impact of a student that it's causing. So that's all calculated out based on multifamily, single family, all those different things are categorized in there. So it's fairly scientific. And again, we have the highest in the state, and we also, I think we were fortunate that we had the developers involved in that process to where they said, don't like it, but understand it, let's go. So it clearly hasn't slowed down.
Yeah, exactly. Supply and demand at the
That's
end, and they
correct.
want the land.
And the developer ultimately is not paying. It's the buyer.
If it pleases the board, we can have that workshop on January 12th before our 5:30 meeting. We can have a workshop that day. We can start this at 4:30 instead of 5:30, and give you guys a half an hour presentation and then a half an hour to discuss about how things are calculated, because we'll be having to come to you thereafter with a recommendation to begin the next study. And one of the things that we had real success with, as Mr. Thacker mentioned, when we did the study shortly after I became the superintendent, was engaging the local community. We engaged the road management task force with the chamber. We engaged with the builders association. We engaged with short-term property, vacation rental developers, so that they really felt like their concerns, their questions about the impact fee study calculation process were heard and taken into account in our calculations. And I want to assure the board that we remain transparent to do that. I just got into the details today of this situation regarding the Bronson 120 and Story Creek and donated land versus dedicated land. And so as Frank has been tasked this afternoon with really looking into that. So I do think we have to go back to, in 2006, would the developer have paid impact fees for every home that they built? in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10? Or when did we implement those impact fees at this level? Does it make sense that now it should be a dedicated site, but with our impact fee credit purchase, or does the donation hold? I would just ask the board for a little bit of time for us to dig more deeply into that. And Mr. Kreppenbacher's been asked to do that on your behalf.
And then the other component, if I may, I'm just one board member, but the calculation considering the fact that if it's a conversion, if it's already in existence, then yes, I can see the impact fee covering it if that's what we projected out. But if you're converting land to non, residential to residential, now you're creating like basically new student stations, or is that already calculated in it? Because it could be a question that's already solved. But I'm just saying that needs to be a consideration when they convert land from one designated use to actual use that generates student station.
And I think when you have a chance to talk with our impact fee study consultants, you'll understand how that process works for the land calculations. Because we look at the cost of additional transportation seats, the cost of additional student station seats, the cost of the land to build those stations, all of that goes into this balloon that then you divide by X, the number of students that you're projecting to grow, and this is what you should generate for impact fees.
Thank you, Dr. Bates.
Any questions?
The last question was, or two more, or quick, the transportation facilities west and east. I understand that the east, we found an alternate site, that the east was gonna get repurposed for, I can't remember what it was, but I think it might have been the virtual school or something.
For maintenance.
For maintenance, yes.
Sir.
But I didn't hear the equivalent for transportation west by Horizon. If we found an alternate site, what would be, it's so close to Horizon, would Horizon use
same.
it for like a
Same
baseball
thing.
field
Yeah.
or something like that? Or
It'd
what
be
would be the other use for that?
The existing Horizon Transportation would be repurposed for transportation or for maintenance
Maintenance.
west.
Okay.
Yes,
And the question I have for transportation facilities, do bus drivers report straight there? Like, do they leave their car there, then they get on the bus, so they don't have to go to the Osceola, the Simpson Road site, right? So is that what
Right.
transportation
They
facilities?
report to each of those sites as I understand it. However, to do the maintenance of buses, they're very limited what they can do at each the existing east and west. Much of the time, those buses have to go back to the main transportation hub off of Simpson Road.
But a large portion of them are also daily reporting to Simpson, then driving all the way to Horizon and St. Cloud to start their runs, because neither site can hold all of the buses for each side of the town. So that's where the deadhead time comes in that I spoke about. I believe one's 40-something%, the other
That's
one's
where the
30.
benefit would be.
So
the
there-
facility
yes.
would actually have a place where they can clock that, the
Yes,
school bus
both
driver can like clock
facilities.
in, take their bus, and go out. back.
No
Every
more
now
driving
you might
back
have
and
some
forth
big
to
neighborhoods.
Simpson, correct.
So, okay.
Yes.
And just for clarification, then the last question was on the Knightsbridge property.
Yes, sir.
Because from what I understand, the Spine Road is gonna be shared with the developer, and we appreciate that. And but Knightsbridge, I understand, is the city consuming, right? I heard-
Yes.
Cause I thought it was county where it was located, but I guess that's the tail end of the city.
Yes.
Is the city gonna participate at all in that road since it benefits, them as well?
The when we originally looked at that with the city, it would be a developer and our cost. Because the
because
the road-
too, you know what I mean, so I'm like.
yeah, the
that's-
road's only needed for the development and for us, so they would put that cost on the developer and us. The red light that we would be asking for, we would ask for the developer on the other side of the road to also contribute, so that would be 3 parties benefiting in the use of the red light. But the Spine Road itself, that cost would be between us and the developer of the Knightsbridge community.
Alright, thank you. That's all my questions.
Christina?
I do have more questions, but I would like to yield my time to the other board members if they.
John?
I have just one, and this is kind of a general question in terms of finding a site for a school. Being hostage to that area there, Pleasant Hill and Fontana Boulevard, what does the traffic study tell you that, how is that gonna impact that situation? And is there any way that we can build schools away from these large arteries that are, like somebody's clogged pores?
So the traffic study would be a portion of the due diligence, which would not be conducted until the board gives us permission to enter into the purchase and sell agreement. So at this time, I do not have a traffic study analysis to tell you the overall impact for that. we understood that this was not the preferred spot for a school, but through the last 4 or 5 years of trying to locate school sites on the west side of the county, they are few and far between, and this site continues to come back. The original site was BK Ranch, and they had actually dedicated a school site inside of their development. But then ultimately Disney Development Company has come along and bought out the BK Ranch land, with a large portion of it being set aside for mitigation and conservation. So that forced us to find a replacement site, which is how we came back to looking at this site. Because there's just not a lot of land on that side of the county that's available or that we can afford for the construction of a school site.
And we do have school siting standards as well, which dictates the minimum acreage with or without retention and other various aspects of that site. But, a large part of our coordination with the county is when we're looking at those larger school sites, a high school, for example, they want us to be what's called on a framework road system. Whereas the smaller, the elementaries, we try to embed those into communities.
Yeah, I just wanna be clear, so that no one can say that I didn't say it. The community in that Poinciana area, they would rather have flying helicopters on Poinciana Boulevard or Pleasant Hill, and then they would also go to work in that same manner. It's obviously a problem, and I know that the schools necessarily aren't the problem that's causing that. However, we do take a lot of the blame, and a lot of the parents and a lot of the people in that community are asking, why is there another, if they see another school here, I might be a 3-month school board member. So it's obviously a problem that we have to either address, and it may be a communications issue as much as anything else. But it has to be addressed, because I know that there's a school right up the street from there.
Absolutely.
Right. And the way things are going, there's gonna be a school right beneath it too at some point. And there might be a school across the street, and my backyard will get a charter school put in. So there's a ton of traffic here, and that has to be a portion of, maybe we somehow, some way, talk about how we're gonna alleviate or not contribute further to the problem.
Yeah, there are members from our school district that work on the county school transportation committee. I can't remember the exact name of the committee, but we do work very closely with the county. And you're absolutely right, sir. We do contribute to that traffic. However, one of our big challenges is dismissal. Arrival in the morning, it's sporadic, it works fairly well. The challenge is at dismissal, where we work very closely with the county to ensure that we have adequate on-site stacking to get our traffic off of the public right-of-way as best we can.
And great job on this, by the way.
Thank you.
Good job. Mr. Bass, you?
That's why I echo what he says. I agree wholeheartedly with John, and I want to thank Julius for pulling this off of the agenda last meeting. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just have a couple questions I'm putting my appraiser hat on the price of the land, and I know that both the school district and all of the developers, we're all feeding from the same trough, and we're fighting for the same property. And I know there's going to be premiums that are going to go with that. But if everybody could look at your slide 21, rather than pass this out, I can just quickly go over it. As an appraiser, in order to establish the value of something, I'm going to look at what other people have been purchasing similar acreage within the vicinity. And when you look at the Cypress Hammock, which is upper left, used to be the old Green Meadows Farm. Everybody remembers that.
Yeah,
Green Meadows Farm. There was now I'm pulling all of this off of public records, and it was purchased for $9.5 million, March 20th, 97 acres of uplands. All these calculations are on uplands. I had to remove the wetlands and just calculate on the uplands. But that came out to $97,746 per acre. Now, you migrate down to Osceola County site, the one that they're going to be doing the affordable housing project. That was purchased this year also, February of 20, for $8.9 million, 65.75 acres of upland, for a price of $135,361 per acre. That has an employment center future land use, which employment center land use is kind of quasi-commercial, will typically sell for more per acre because of it's a higher intensity use. Now, and then the last one is the Frito-Lay property. The Frito-Lay property was purchased last year in 2019 for 9.5, and it was 62 acres, and that was the highest amongst the bunch, and that was $153,000 per acre. Why are we at $166,000 an acre? Is my question. Because if I'm an appraiser, these are three perfect comparables. So has there been an appraisal done on the property yet?
So again, the last appraisal we had was from the first time we looked at it as a transportation use. So again, the current direction to staff is no money or dollars can be spent on a potential school site until we enter into a purchase and sell agreement that outlines all the due diligence to be performed. So we are unable to even do an appraisal until we at least enter into a purchase and sell agreement to lock in so the owner can't sell from us while we're out conducting our due diligence. So it locks us in for 180 days. If at any point during that 180 days we run into a due diligence item that is not feasible or to our favor, we can cancel without penalty to either side. And the first thing we do in our due diligence is do the appraisal, make sure both sides are happy with the price, then we move forward with the balance of the due diligence. If we don't agree with the appraisal price within the first 45 days, we just walk away from the agreement and we do not conduct any additional due diligence.
Rhonda, is it normal that we both get an appraiser?
Yes, typically we get an appraisal, they get an appraisal. If they're within 10%, we do an average, that becomes the price. If they're not within 10%, we do a third appraisal, paid for 50-50 by both parties, and then the two closest are averaged, and that's how you get to the asking price.
Can we send Mr. Bass to do our appraisal?
But you know, I wonder though.
97's low, those could be worth 80.
Well, I wonder, and this is probably gonna come across wrong, but I don't mean it to be, but the property immediately to the south that's gonna be adjacent to this parcel is the county's affordable housing project, and we've never done that before, so I don't even know what that's gonna look like, or is that going to affect property values? Potentially, it could, and you got the Sunbridge transfer or station that's gonna go there. So my question is, if I think at 165, that's pretty much at a premium. If they don't sell to us and we walk away and they sell to the developer, I don't know that a developer would. I don't know that they would get that much from a developer, because the developer wouldn't be able to build a higher end product right there at that locale. But I might be wrong. But
So what I can do is, we have Bishop Bill Duncan here, which is the real estate broker.
I see a lot of head nods, so I hope I'm talking correctly speaking.
So this is the school board's real estate broker team, so Jill, Rose, and Mike Bill. So Jill, if you wanna.
Yeah, thank you. I'll sit here. I guess that's fine.
As a matter of fact, I think the property southeast, one of them was for sale, and I look at the MLS for like $3 million.
Yeah.
Where it says Shingle Creek Mitigation Group or something like that. I forgot who the owners were, but on the MLS, it said seller motivated, 2.9 million.
Yeah,
It's all wet.
Now the only problem,
Put another school.
now the only problem is that there's a Sunrail station there. I mean, there's a train track. There's no major access road. So that's when I first was thinking about it. Why don't we buy that one for $3 million? But you're landlocked. You have no major artery to get into it. So I'm pretty sure that impacts it.
Yeah, so we looked at 15 different properties in this corridor, and including cold calls to all the off-market properties, including the Frito-Lay property, including the US Cold Storage property, including the Hanover property that transferred to Pulte, which is the comp that you mentioned. And you're spot on. I mean, I have every comp you just mentioned on this piece of paper. One thing, just historically speaking, this property was appraised a year and a half ago for $9 million. And
How
so
much?
we were able to renegotiate that down.
About 9 million
Nine.
2 years ago.
So we're under contract, well, hopefully we'll be under contract soon for 7.1. And how I valued it is that the property's already entitled. So I took the entitlement, which includes commercial and townhomes, split it up to what I thought market demand was for each piece, because to be quite honest, it's over entitled. And the valuation we came up with was about 7.6 million. So we're under that. That was our target. We started lower and we held strong at our initial offer. So I think we offered 7, we're at 7.1. And so that's how we valued it. I personally think Sunrail is a positive in terms of future value for the area. And I guess, you know, I don't know what the county's plan is from an affordability perspective. I don't know how anyone could build affordable housing with construction costs the way they are right now. But I mean, more people would make commercial more valuable. There is no grocery store in this corridor except for to the south. There's a lot of missing needs in this area from a retail perspective. And with a traffic light and Pulte across the street, all those apartments, I definitely see commercial value in this corridor. And I mean, we booked in our commercial at $175 an acre. I think it's worth way more. Tom Shalafo is marketing his parcels at the corner of OBT and Point Siena for $700,000 an acre. So I mean, we feel pretty good about the value. I think it's going to appraise.
Well, I didn't want to come across as being a naysayer. I'm just looking, you know, as a general overview of the recent sales in that immediate corridor.
I think if it was unentitled, but because there were entitlements already given to the property in there, like I said, it's over entitled. And I think it has 600 units of towns and 28 acres of commercial or some, you know, it's a little aggressive. But I mean, we kind of backed that down, and I've got packages here. I mean, we're willing to share whatever documents, you know, you guys want to take a look at.
And if I can just, for the board, because this conversation directly affects some of the items that we might be approving today, just keep in mind what we are approving isn't necessarily the purchase, right? So we are approving moving forward, knowing that we will have 2 appraisals done.
Right.
And if there is a 10% standard deviation, then we go ahead and do a third one. I think that's important. Like, that was something that I really needed to keep in mind when I was taking a look at these things as a new board member. But I also want to stress the fact that we have been looking at this property for how long now?
Over 2 years.
The whole time that I've been on the board, we have been having this very conversation.
Why didn't we get the opportunity for Green Meadows if we've been negotiating with this one for 2 years? We didn't get a chance at the Green Meadows parcel?
It was
At
sold
which
by
one?
the time.
At one time, did we
The
get a
county parcel?
Cypress Hammond.
Cypress?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
no, Hanover
Yeah,
had
Green Meadows
control of
used to-
that.
I think the
Control
same
over
thing
it.
too, I'm with you, Rob.
I'm sorry, Ann?
Hanover had control of that parcel already, and we did try to work with them, but they only have 97 acres net. And so for them to sell a school site, I mean, it was an emphatic no from Bill.
Okay, last question then. All of the remaining land that's buffering that is all owned by Disney. And I thought it was gonna be mitigation stuff. And has anyone reached out to Disney to see if they would be willing to?
Yes.
Multiple times
Meetings.
we've reached out, and their effective answer has been they haven't quite decided what to do with all the property they've got, so they've not come back.
We'll name the school for after them.
No, I know.
I think they can run.
Curriculum for the school, all of those things. I went and met with their real estate team.
Okay.
We went above,
Not Mickey Mouse
we
ears
went
on
at
that.
every level, trying to get through.
I got you. Okay. Well, thank you. You've answered my question. Thank you, ma'am.
I'm smiling.
You're smiling, I'm sorry. Just one simple one. It might be a dumb question, but I know as Julius and we've all mentioned, our budget is very specific on, you know, the impact fee can only go to this and this. The revenue that $2 million in revenue we received for the cell tower, does that just go right back into the cap? Where does that
I won't.
money go?
I actually was gonna look that up, I do not know off the top of my head, but let me find that out for sure.
I asked a question that Sarah Graver doesn't have the answer.
Doesn't happen often.
I've done it.
Check that one off.
I've checked that one.
Big day.
I believe that's going in the general fund, but I wanna double check.
We didn't build the cell tower, right? We have the land,
Leasing
we
it.
leasing it.
We get $2 million. I just wanna know where
So we don't maintain and operate it.
it is going, and so,
Strictly lease.
okay, that's all I have.
Okay, my questions are a little less intricate, so they could be able to be answered very quickly, just for the sake of understanding high performance
when we compare a high performance school versus one of our standard, well, I don't wanna call them standard school, but our older schools, what is the difference? What does it take to be called a high performance school?
Sure, that's a great question. So it's above and beyond the traditional construction. It starts with the building envelope, making the envelope very tight, and there's an attention to detail for air leakage, which is a major loss of energy. And then the next big area is the mechanical and the lighting system, decoupling and right-sizing the mechanical system. Instead of adding all this safety factor for the mechanical system, now by having the tighter envelope and a more efficient building envelope, you can right-size that mechanical system accordingly. And what we're seeing is anywhere from 1 to 5.2% upfront premium. However, a very quick return on investment. For example, with Canoe Creek KA, our projected return on investment is less than 3 years. And that's projected. You know, we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. I suspect that once we get actual real run data, that those numbers will improve. And so will that estimated $125,000 a year annual savings. It's a way for school districts to shift their operational dollars elsewhere where we have tremendous need.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Just
And then,
follow-up question, Vice Chair, if you don't mind.
sure,
How can there be a premium to appropriately estimating a need of a product? So for example, you're saying that we're closing in the envelope, we're tightening the envelope. So if we need 15 tons of AC for a specific area, and what they're doing now is exaggerating just in case it's wrong, they're gonna do 20. So to go back to 15 or 15.5 or whatever the difference is, we're paying a premium to appropriately estimate what the need is?
No, the premium is for those attention to detail items that need to be done to the building envelope, the joinery of the envelope. The tilt panel joints, for example, instead of having one backer rod and one caulk joint that fails typically in 2 to 5 years, there are 4 additional layers that are applied. It's a low cost, low tech solution to keep that envelope very tight so that over time we can realize ultra low energy usage and ultimate operational savings.
so would we say that the initial investment is a 2.5
Correct, that
premium, and then
exactly.
we're going to experience the savings on the back end?
exactly,
Would that be the best
yes.
way to explain it?
Yes,
Does that
I'm
make
sorry
sense?
for making that confusing, but yes.
Yeah.
And then also we do energy modeling, so that now that we can get that tighter envelope and that better performance with HVAC and lighting, that's all run through an energy model to determine what our ultimate EUI, energy use intensity, is. On a conventional, traditional building, that runs anywhere from 55 to 68. We've been able to drive down our energy use intensity anywhere from 25 to at Neo City Academy across the street to a 16.
I understand. So when you're saying envelope, you're talking literally the envelope of the building,
Correct,
not a figurative envelope. I got you.
correct, the building envelope,
Thank
yes,
you.
sir.
And also, we tend to incorporate dedicated outside air units that are pre-treating the air. Extremely efficient. By doing that, you're getting a better, healthier environment inside the learning space because you're bringing in outside fresh air. But you're not penalizing yourself by having to then heat and cool that big space. You're pre-treating it before it gets into the building. That limits the other supplemental air conditioning or heating that you would need. So you can downsize those units. And to your point, designers know that most buildings, the way they're built, are going to leak. There's infiltration and exfiltration, both. They have to take that into account when they design their systems, or they won't work properly. Well, when you purposely tighten up that overall shell that you're looking at, and that shell is everything. It's your roof, it's your windows, it's all the connections in between those things. When you tighten all that up, you reduce that leakage, And then you have a much more efficient system, you can downsize your mechanical system. And that's where a lot of the savings come from.
Understood, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not done, are you clear?
Right.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so speaking of savings, on slide 14, we're talking about we will save an estimated $14,000 a year. Do you know how we're saving that? What's the calculation? How is that I guess being calculated?
So, great question. We initially set a target of 25 EUI and a 0.20 cubic foot per minute per square foot air leakage. What we ultimately achieved was 80% better than
Okay.
that. So that
Not 8% better,
80.
80%
better.
Yeah, our worst numbers was a 0.046 on our exfiltration. So that has all been factored in by our engineer to come to a projected savings, and that's projected. As we actually get 12 months of runtime, I suspect that those numbers are gonna improve. And the beautiful thing about Point Siena is we have another
12.
two-story building that we built to traditional standards just 3 years ago. So that's gonna
So you have a
provide an
great
excellent
comparison.
comparison.
They are
Okay.
both built off the same prototype.
Mhm.
We obviously made a lot of modifications to the new one to make it more energy efficient, but the shell is very, very similar. Same square footage, same number of stories, same basic footprint. So we've got them separately metered now, so we'll be able to tell exactly what the difference is, real time.
Perfect. Okay, I also have a question about the celebration, Island Village. You said you were bringing something forth on the 15th. Can you remind me what that is?
That is our design fee.
Okay,
We've already designed the main building, but we have to make some tweaks to it now that we're locating it in a different location. So we
okay.
have to redo all the site work and make some, and we have to bring the codes up to date
So
for
are
them
you
to come in.
showing us actual plans or are we actually just seeing what the cost, what exactly am I expected to see on December 15th?
It's the additional design
Okay,
to get that prototype adapted to that site with the building code, the most current building code revisions.
It's not the design, I'm sorry, it's the design fee.
Design
Okay.
Design fee, yes.
okay.
The design will come in one of our later workshops. as soon as
Okay,
we have a chance
perfect.
to make those modifications.
So we're just approving the fee based on the new square footage?
Yes,
Okay.
the
Thank
new
you.
location, the new site location. The school actually shifted
Yes,
to another location on that site.
perfect, okay. I do have more questions, but we are about 10 minutes before our next meeting, so I'm gonna go ahead and just email them to you if that's okay?
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Board, any other questions, Dr. Pace?
Thank you all for the great discussion and thank you Mark and Rhonda for their presentation and thank you Linda for the investigation.
We'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting and reconvene in 10 minutes.